Shayne and Kelly Lovera looked like the perfect couple.
It's a vivacious person and you're drawn to her.
Kelly was the all-American boy. Tall, good-looking, athletic.
But there was trouble brewing beneath their picture-perfect facade.
You could tell there was trouble in paradise. He was not a happy camper.
And when his body was discovered on a remote mountainside,
dark-colored Jeep was over an embankment.
Investigators would have to follow a trail of blood to determine whether Kelly's death was an accident.
Kelly apparently had had too much to drink.
A suicide.
He was just so sad.
Or murder.
At first glance, yes, it would have been a car crash, but all...
Great Smoky Mountains National Park for hiking, camping, and breathtaking views of gorgeous scenery.
It's a thriving tourist area. We have about 16 or 18 million visitors a year.
But on the morning of November 6, 1994, two tourists stopped to take in a mountain vista and saw something unexpected.
It was a black or dark-colored Jeep that was over an embankment, probably 30 feet down.
The tourists contacted the park. Rangers soon arrived at the crash site, scrambling down for a closer look.
Inside was the body of a young white male.
At first glance, it was pretty obvious how he got there.
He ran the Jeep off this embankment down through the woods.
The Jeep traveled about 30 feet before it came head-on to a hickory tree.
And the impact had apparently been fatal.
There was pools of blood in that Jeep.
The dead man's name was Kelly Lovera, a teacher at a local community college.
We were able to determine an ID by going through the car.
And that's where the investigation would have ended if it weren't for one nagging detail about the crash site.
This guy wasn't sitting behind the wheel. The body was lying in the back of the Jeep.
Had he been thrown by the crash? Or was there another explanation?
Maybe he wasn't driving the car.
While authorities puzzled over the implications, somebody had to perform the difficult task of breaking the news to Shayne Lovera, the dead man's wife and mother of his two children. Shayne had met Kelly a decade earlier while attending college in Columbia, Missouri.
She was in a swim club there, and she encountered Kelly Lovera, who was attending the University of Missouri.
Shayne was a pretty outgoing 19-year-old.
Shayne is a vivacious person and you're drawn to her.
24-year-old Kelly was the all-American boy.
Tall, good-looking, athletic. He played trombone in the marching band. His marks were very good. He was a real charmer.
There were like two Kellys, the very intelligent, nose to the grindstone type of person, and then the weekend side of him where he was his, he liked to play cards and ride his bike and hang out with his buddies.
The two seemed drawn to each other from the start.
Shayne was struck by Kelly. Obviously, I suggest that Kelly was even more struck by Shayne.
When I met Shayne, it just sort of, it was like, wow, this is the one I want.
Within a month after their first date, the couple moved in together. Kelly seemed to restore Shayne's sense of security, something that had been shaken in her recent past. Born in the heart of Appalachia and the only daughter of teenage parents, Shayne's first years had been hard ones.
She was born into a rather lower working class family.
Shayne's parents split when she was 3, but when Shayne was 7, her mother married Brent Mills, the president of the local bank.
Shayne went from this kind of lower working class level up to being really the cream of the crop. She suddenly enjoyed all the perks of a good life.
Shayne thrived in her new environment, and by the time she reached high school, life was definitely good.
She was the junior miss. She was the president of the ski club. She was the editor of the high school yearbook.
But not all of Shayne's time was devoted to school activities.
She was very smart, but she was also wild. She was a party girl. She was popular. Always had lots of dates.
In May 1984, just weeks before her high school graduation, Shayne's party came to a crashing halt.
Brent Mills committed suicide. There was an investigation at the bank, and he subsequently committed suicide.
We had an senior award ceremony about a week after Brent had killed himself. And Shayne and her mother were there, and everybody was crying because she was just pitiful. I mean, they were devastated.
The loss of the only father she'd ever really known wasn't the only cause for devastation. The investigation at the bank made Brent Mills' suicide the talk of the town.
You had not only dealing with the death, but he killed himself over financial irregularities with the bank. So you had all this scandal. So she went from being in a wealthy family with good standing to being surrounded by allegations and suspicions.
Her adopted father's suicide and the public scandal left Shayne with more than just emotional burdens.
He had a lot of debt. There was some financial burdens.
Her world collapsed. Suddenly she's fallen back down again into the lower strata. She couldn't even afford to finish college. She didn't inherit anything.
Shayne was still reeling from the fallout of her father's death when she met Kelly that fall in Missouri.
Shayne managed to get herself enrolled at a small college in Missouri. She saw Kelly Lovera and supposedly fell head over heels for him right away.
He was very stable at a time when her life was in great upheaval.
Kelly also seemed to crave stability.
His dad and mom had gone through a bitter divorce, and I think he didn't really want to go there.
His parents' recent divorce didn't make Kelly cautious about commitment. Within 7 months of their first date and 6 months living together, he and Shayne were married.
I thought she was a great gal. She was a lot of fun.
The couple spent the next 5 years in Missouri. Kelly graduated with a degree in education and went to work as a teacher. Shayne put her own ambitions on hold when the couple's first child was born in 1987.
Shayne's original ambition was to become a TV personality, an on-air news reader, perhaps a weather girl. She would have been splendid at it. She was bright enough, outgoing enough, attractive enough. She just might have made a career out of that, but she didn't.
After their second child was born, Shayne and Kelly decided to move to Shayne's hometown, Sevierville, Tennessee.
He enjoyed Tennessee. He enjoyed the mountains.
He was happy doing nature things. He gave us a picture of a cabin in the mountains and said, "This is my dream, is to live in the mountains in a cabin."
That may have been Kelly's dream, but after only 6 years of marriage, the young couple had managed to accumulate a lot of debt, something Kelly's parents attributed in large part to Shayne.
She came from money, and Kelly's dream was not to have all the money. She seemed to have a different level of needs and desires than he did.
Kelly got a job teaching math at a local community college. His modest teacher's salary, combined with the couple's debt, meant they had to settle for an apartment in a section of Sevierville known as Frog Alley. It was a big change from Shayne's last home in Tennessee.
She had gone literally from being this Gatlinburg socialite and heiress to living in Frog Alley.
She changed when she moved back to Tennessee. She changed.
Shayne could still be a socialite of sorts, hosting impromptu parties for the other 20-somethings in the complex.
Frog Alley was really party central, populated with single people or with young marrieds who simply liked to party. Everyone having a great time, everyone drinking too much, gambling too much.
At first, Kelly was right in the thick of it.
Kelly was a drinker. He didn't use dope, from what I gather. He didn't use drugs, but he was quite a drinker.
By the summer of 1994, Shayne and Kelly had been married for almost 9 years and parents for 7. Co-worker Alberta Boring told Kelly that he needed to think about the effect the partying was having on his children.
I said, "You've got to stop that." I said, "You have 2 children in your house." And he said, "Well, they're asleep in the other room."
Kelly apparently agreed.
He said, "You're right." He said, "I'm going to have to stop this. I do have 2 babies."
He was a good father with the kids. He always played with the kids.
However, getting 28-year-old Shayne to slow down proved difficult. Besides playing hostess at the Frog Alley parties, Shayne also had a part-time job selling industrial machine parts. The job seemed perfect for a woman who enjoyed being the center of male attention.
Driving in her black Jeep, dressed in her usual black outfit, wearing her heavy makeup, I think she delighted in having the opportunity to meet these very macho young guys. Kelly was not very happy with it, but quite frankly, they needed the money because they were in terrible debt.
Her clients wouldn't be the only men Shayne flirted with either.
It's our 10-year reunion. Shayne spent an enormous amount of time with the bartender and was very flirtatious with the bartender. And Kelly saw all of that, and he didn't react at all. And I found that very odd.
In August of 1994, Shayne had a new man to flirt with. A Sevier County native and Navy vet named Brett Ray moved into Frog Alley.
Prior to meeting Shayne Lovera, he was in the Navy for a while, did very well there until he tried to punch out a naval officer, which got him 30 days in the brig and dishonorable discharge.
Like Shayne, there was money in Brett's background.
Brett's father was the publisher of the newspaper where I worked, the Mountain Press, and Brett worked there. He did pay-stip work on the paper.
But when it came to ambition, 25-year-old Brett didn't appear to aim much further than Frog Alley.
Brett Ray is I think your classic Tennessee good old boy, driving a pickup truck and raising hell on a Saturday night.
I immediately thought Brett's the sort of guy that Shayne would go for. They were both wild.
Brett soon became a regular at Shayne's parties. She paid him plenty of attention. And friends and family started noticing a change in Kelly.
You could tell there was trouble in paradise. There was things going on in the marriage which we knew nothing about.
I said, Kelly, I said, there is a thing called divorce, you know, if you're fighting. And he said, I will not leave my children.
But by November of 1994, there were signs that he might be having second thoughts.
He called before we were going out for dinner, and he said, Dad, I need to talk to you. I said, Kelly, we're leaving for dinner. Can I call you back?
Unfortunately, Bob Lovera would never know what was on his son's mind that night, because the next call he got from Tennessee would bring news of a car crash. November 5th, 1994 was an unseasonably warm Saturday night in the Smoky Mountains. And for Shayne Lovera, that alone warranted a party.
It was like all the other parties. We had motorcycle gangs dropping in, friends from near and far coming by, a lot of drinking, a little smoking pot.
Kelly Lovera didn't hit any of the joints passed around, but he did pour bourbon after bourbon.
Kelly got pretty drunk that evening.
Shayne enjoyed herself too, drifting through the crowd, drinking, laughing, and flirting.
If there's something going on, she's there and she's in the middle of it.
At around 1 a.m., Kelly finished off one last drink and fell asleep on the sofa inside the apartment.
Picture Kelly in a deep sleep brought on by all the alcohol he consumed.
Later that morning, Shayne Lovera would be knocking on her neighbors' doors. Kelly, it seemed, was missing.
Shayne was asking some other people in Frog Alley, have you seen Kelly? He never came home last night.
Coming up, Kelly Lovera's Jeep is found over a cliff.
Had it not hit this tree, it would have flipped several times.
And the investigators attempt to piece together his last hours.
He didn't walk out of it.
November 6, 1994. It was a little before 9 a.m. when two tourists in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park spotted Kelly Lovera's Jeep.
The black Jeep was over an embankment, probably 30 feet down.
It had apparently plummeted off the road, traveling down the slope before
It would have very quickly been closed for the winter because it gets a lot of snow there.
Instead, once the Rangers found the body that morning, they contacted the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
We were called in to assist Sevierville and the Park Service in investigating a suspicious death.
Why the park rangers were suspicious became apparent as soon as TBI agents looked into the Jeep.
He wasn't behind the steering wheel. That's one key, you know, if he's in the back seat, that maybe he wasn't driving.
At first glance, yes, it would have been a car crash, but all of the facts didn't add up.
A quick search of the vehicle revealed Kelly's identity. And while the medical examiner's team began the delicate task of recovering Kelly's body from the wreck, the investigators drove down the mountain in search of his widow.
Went in to speak to Shayne and to tell her what had happened.
It was around noon when the investigators knocked on the door of Kelly and Shayne's Frog Alley apartment.
Told her that Kelly had passed away and told her he was involved in a vehicle accident.
Shayne told the police about the party they'd thrown the night before.
There had been a party there at the home, Lovera home that evening. A lot of friends over, a lot of drinking. Kelly was not a big drinker, but apparently had had too much to drink on this evening.
And around 2 a.m., people started drifting away, and Kelly fell asleep, stretched out on the sofa in the apartment.
While her husband slept, Shayne said she'd gone off with another man, her neighbor of 3 months, 25-year-old Brett Ray.
Shayne and Brett Ray took off with a friend to go get some burgers.
And when Shayne, who'd also been drinking, came into the apartment, she said that Kelly had woken up, demanding to know where she'd been.
Shayne claimed that when she came home from having burgers with Brett across the way at about 3 or 4 in the morning, that Kelly awoke and was very angry with her. He was very jealous because she had been out with Brett.
They had argued around 4:30, and she put the time. She was pretty definite about the time, 4:30.
Shayne insisted that Brett was just a friend, but Kelly had refused to believe that. Their argument had ended with Kelly driving off in his Jeep. She told investigators that she couldn't go after him because of the children.
The children were sleeping.
Shayne claimed that she gave up and went to bed and fell asleep.
Was it possible that the investigators' first instincts about Kelly's death were wrong? Could it have been an accident caused by a combination of alcohol and jealous rage?
You're left with, maybe it looks more like an accident.
That's what Kelly's parents were told when they received the news that afternoon.
It just hit me in the stomach. It's just like you got a blow to the stomach.
Of course, the shock of it all, you don't think to ask enough questions.
What the Loveras didn't know was that Tennessee investigators were not taking Shayne's version of events at face value. Kelly's body was telling a different story, one that looked more and more as though the Jeep crash was a cover-up for murder. First, there was the fact that Kelly's body had been found in the Jeep's back seat.
The body, it was just out of place.
Had Kelly been thrown by the crash? Or had he been in the back seat all along? The answer came just hours after Kelly's body had been discovered, when his body was finally removed from the Jeep's bloody back seat.
There was a lot of blood in the vehicle.
In fact, so much blood had pooled in the back seat of Kelly's Jeep that it had begun to seep through the cracks around the tailgate.
The blood was leaking out the back and down the rear bumper.
That Kelly had lost that much blood wasn't unusual, considering the extensive head trauma he'd suffered. What was unusual was the blood itself.
The blood was flowing in the wrong direction.
Since Kelly's Jeep had crashed nose first, the blood on the back bumper suggested that investigators were not looking at a simple crash.
This was not an accident. This was murder.
Rather than being killed in the crash, the investigators now suspected Kelly had been severely beaten before he was loaded in the back of the Jeep.
I think he was still alive when he was loaded in his car.
Investigators theorized that Kelly's killer had then driven the Jeep into the mountains, searching for a sharp curve and a steep drop-off.
Obviously it was a fake, and you had to have pulled over the curb to get to the embankment.
Earlier that day, Shayne had told police that Kelly had stormed off around 4:30 a.m., jealous that she'd been out with her friend Brett Ray. Had he gone looking for a fight? The investigators decided it was time to talk to Brett.
We began to look at this relationship that Brett was apparently having with Shayne.
Before Brett could be brought in for questioning, Sevierville police received a tip from a friend of Brett's named Jim Burney. According to Burney, Brett had called him a little before sunup that morning. He was stranded in Gatlinburg and asked Burney for a ride back to Sevierville.
When Jim picked him up, he said he was all dirty.
And when Burney asked Brett what he'd done to get so dirty, he said he'd received a surprising answer.
And he said, well, I just ran Kelly off the side of an embankment.
According to Burney, he wasn't the only person Brett had talked to about what he had done.
Brett was foolish enough to brag about what he had done to a couple of his friends.
Burney also told investigators that Brett's relationship with Shayne was more than just a harmless flirtation, at least for Brett.
He was deeply in love with Shayne.
By the next morning, police had Brett Ray in custody.
They arrested Brett within 24 hours of Kelly's death.
Booked on murder charges, Brett claimed he'd last seen Kelly at Shayne's party. Very drunk, but very alive.
He claimed at first to know nothing about it, and he stuck to his guns.
Shortly after taking Brett into custody, investigators asked Shayne to come to the station to answer a few more questions. Shayne agreed, but the interview didn't last long.
She had requested an attorney, and at that point, we shut down the interrogation.
She did not, talk any further with law enforcement.
On the afternoon of November 7th, Kelly's autopsy confirmed what police already suspected. Kelly hadn't died in a car crash.
He appeared to be beaten, severely beaten around the head.
The blows didn't kill him. They knocked him obviously in a deep coma, and they caused the brain to swell, which closed off the brain stem. But the heart kept beating. He was essentially brain dead.
According to the medical examiner, Kelly's wounds were consistent with being beaten with a baseball bat, a fact which certainly didn't eliminate Brett as a suspect.
Brett Ray was a big, strong, tough guy. If he had wielded a baseball bat strong enough, he would have shattered Kelly's skull.
But there was another possibility. Could Shayne have wielded the weapon that ended her husband's life? After all, Brett's alleged confession to his friend Jim Burney only concerned running the Jeep off the embankment. Was he the one protecting her? On the afternoon of November 8th, investigators were once again knocking on the door of Shayne's Frog Alley apartment.
We went back with a search warrant, took our crime scene people in there.
The investigators brought a crucial tool, luminol, a chemical that glows when it comes in contact with blood enzymes.
You can't clean blood, and you can't get the enzymes up.
2 days before, Shayne had sat down with the investigators in that same apartment and explained how Kelly had stormed out after a heated argument. But when the police sprayed the luminol, the resulting glow suggested a very different scenario.
She was correct to the extent that he had left the apartment, but he didn't walk out of there.
Coming up, the luminol reveals the killer's trail.
We were able to trace with the luminol where the body had been drugged.
But where will it lead?
There was a drag pattern all the way through the hallway, out through the children's bedroom.
November 8th, 1994. Shayne Lovera's husband Kelly had been found murdered 2 days earlier. Within 24 hours of finding his body, police already had a suspect in custody, the Lovera's 25-year-old neighbor, Brett Ray.
Brett had made statements to a number of people that he had been involved.
A day earlier, an informant had told police that Brett had confessed to disposing of Kelly's body by driving his Jeep off a mountain road.
Ran the Jeep itself off the cliff, or off a embankment, hoping, of course, that it would cover up the fact that there had been a crime committed.
But if Kelly hadn't died in that same apartment and explained how Kelly had stormed out after a heated argument over her flirtation with Brett.
There was a party, Kelly got drunk, and she woke him up and they argued and he left.
Shayne claimed that she had gone to bed.
That was what Shayne said had happened at least. But the investigators weren't so sure. Looking around the apartment, they noticed signs that suggested more than a mere argument.
Kelly's, he had his diploma on the wall, and there were literally blood splatters on the glass frame of his master's degree.
The blood on Kelly's diploma was enough to raise suspicion that Kelly hadn't stormed out, as Shayne said. But the true test would be when the evidence technician sprayed the apartment with luminol, a chemical that reacts to invisible traces of blood.
Once they sprayed the apartment with luminol, they could see what happened.
And what happened, according to the luminol's luminescent glow, wasn't exactly the scenario Shayne had described.
She was correct to the extent that he had left the apartment, but he didn't walk out of there. He was drugged out of there after being beaten to death.
You could see where the blood pattern started on the couch. There was a drag pattern all the way through the hallway, out through the children's bedroom, across the windowsill.
The luminol couldn't tell authorities who had beaten Kelly in his sleep, but based on where the killing occurred, they were convinced Shayne was involved.
There's no way she could not have been present when this beating occurred.
This is unbelievable to suggest that she slept through the whole thing in this tiny little apartment.
In fact, police were beginning to suspect that Shayne had engineered the entire plot.
Probably she contacted Brett. At some point he came to the apartment, she let him in, and proceeded to beat Kelly to death with a ball bat while he was lying on the couch.
An arrest would require more than suspicion. But when Kelly's parents arrived from Missouri and met with the police made it clear that they didn't think Brett Ray had acted alone.
When we talked to Chief Fox, he made it very clear that this wasn't an accident.
After we left the police station, I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that my stepson was murdered by a woman that had been in my home many times and that I trusted and that I cared for.
Needless to say, the service on November 9th was awkward.
It was hard, very cold, very impersonal, like the families were separated.
It didn't take long for the mourners to sense that something was wrong. Shayne's behavior in particular seemed odd.
She and her sister were laughing and carrying on the outside of the funeral home. And I turned and looked at them and then just went back in. And, of course, my whole thought was, oh, my God,
I couldn't help but think, Shayne's husband's dead. Did she have a role in this?
The police were already convinced, and in the days following the funeral, they strengthened their case against Shayne.
We just slowly begin to build this up. When you deal with circumstantial evidence, you're putting things together. I mean, it's a combination. It's not any one single factor.
One of their first steps, canvassing the apartments in Frog Alley. The first stop was Brett Ray's apartment, where they discovered a revealing message saved to his answering machine.
Where's Kelly? Girlfriend with his car.
Sneak down, see me.
I'll try.
Sneak up and see me, sneak down, just sneak out, see me.
We, of course, developed the fact that was true, that there was a romantic relationship going on.
And not just with Brett, according to what Shayne's Frog Alley neighbors told detectives.
Shayne was having an affair with Brett Ray, and she was also at the same time having an affair with another person there at the apartment complex.
We found out that she had had several affairs with different men.
The affairs, the fact that there was more than one, it was not a great leap to believe that she wanted her husband out of the picture.
And the affairs weren't the only motive the investigators uncovered either. When the investigators questioned Kelly's co-worker Alberta Boring, they learned that Shayne had been very interested in his life insurance policy.
The Sunday that I got word that he had gotten killed, on Monday I came to work and she called, wanted to talk to me, and the first thing she asked was how much life insurance he had.
Shayne was a widow with 2 small children, so inquiring about her husband's insurance wasn't all that unusual. But when police dug into the details of the policy, they noticed something intriguing.
They paid double indemnity if Kelly died in an accident.
Was the Jeep going over the cliff more than just an attempt to cover up Kelly's murder?
No, I believe it was a plan of making it look like an accident where she could collect more insurance.
The bloody apartment, the affairs, and the double indemnity clause were enough for a Sevier County judge to issue a warrant. On December 13, 1994, Sevierville police arrested Shayne for first-degree murder.
It did not come to surprise at all. By that time, we knew everything that had happened.
We just sort of had to accept that she probably did do this, and we would wait for a trial and see.
Although at her arraignment that afternoon, it was Shayne who appeared to have a hard time accepting the fact that she was under arrest.
I walked in to the courtroom, and she says, hey, Jamie, and she's waving, and waving me over and wanted to talk to me, and I kept sort of glancing at her lawyer, and I was like, well, Shayne, I'm here to cover this hearing, and she just kind of wanted to, do girl talk and catch up. It was odd.
Charged with Kelly's murder, both Shayne and Brett were released on bond.
Both made bail and were released.
It really created a lot of attention and concern and consternation in the community.
But while the community may have been concerned that the 2 accused killers had made bail, the indictments revealed that the authorities had different reasons to be concerned.
We relied a lot upon circumstantial evidence
The district attorney knew he didn't have a strong case against Miss Lovera.
Coming up, Shayne built her own case against Brett.
Said he had hit him, I don't know how many times. And then he finally fell back onto the couch.
But will he be there? Though she stood accused of murdering her husband, 29-year-old Shayne Lovera appeared confident as she walked into a Tennessee courtroom on March 26, 1996.
As far as her demeanor, she was pretty calm, cool, and collected.
Shayne's co-defendant, 26-year-old Brett Ray, looked far less assured of an acquittal when he sat down at the defense table.
He was in a very difficult position. He had strong evidence against him.
While the case against Shayne was largely circumstantial, the DA had witnesses prepared to testify that Brett had admitted to dumping Kelly's body in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Brett Ray made statements admitting his guilt to friends of his.
In fact, the evidence against Brett was apparently so strong that barely 2 months before the trial was scheduled to begin, he'd skipped bail.
Brett borrowed his younger brother's RX-7 sports car, brand new, and took off for Mexico.
But after only a week as a fugitive, Brett had been captured at the
He was seeking life without the possibility of parole.
In his opening argument, the prosecutor told the court that Shayne and Brett had both conspired to kill Kelly. Shayne, he claimed, wanted out of her marriage and wanted to make money on the deal.
There was insurance on her husband's life. And the proof will show that that insurance, in fact, doubled if he died as a result of an accident.
Shayne's defense attorney, in his opening statement, didn't deny that Kelly had been killed in the Lovera's apartment. But he argued Shayne was not the killer.
Shayne's theory of defense was that Brett was obsessed with her and that it was a fatal attraction sort of thing.
Her defense was that she went to sleep and apparently Brett came back to the house and did this on his own.
Remarkably, Brett's lawyer didn't deny the theory. In fact, he didn't even make an opening statement.
As a judge, you sit there and wonder why no defense is being offered. It later came out. He apparently told his counsel not to present any defense.
He was prepared to take his licks and go on.
But while Brett was unwilling to put on a defense, he had been just as reluctant to cooperate with the authorities and testify against Shayne.
He was so in love with Shayne, he didn't want to risk her missing the opportunity for freedom.
Brett wouldn't testify against his former lover. But when the prosecution started presenting its case the afternoon of March 26th, they called another of Shayne's lovers to the stand, a former Frog Alley neighbor named Wade Hill.
She talked to him about killing her husband, wanted to talk to him about types of poison that might not be detected in the system. He thought at the time, of course, that she was joking.
The prosecution presented evidence that Shayne had eventually found a lover who was willing, and that lover was sitting beside her at the defense table.
She probably started the affair with Brett because she thought that she could convince Brett to do what she wanted to do.
He was a kid who was really out to have fun with as many, he liked fast girls, fast cars, lots of beer on a Saturday night, you know. And somehow when he met Shayne, all of this coalesced into something very different.
The prosecutors then put on witnesses to the fact that Shayne had continued to manipulate Brett after their arrest for Kelly's murder, while they were both out on bail.
We had a detective actually following them, surveilling them, and keeping a log.
And when the undercover detective took the stand, he claimed those logs documented a long list of illicit liaisons.
And he surveilled them going to a number of motels.
The police actually followed them up into the mountains and witnessed and testified, watching them strip within this Jeep with the top off and make love in the woods.
A member of the surveillance team also testified that Shayne had talked Brett into skipping bail, all but sending him to Mexico.
Best we could put together, she became convinced that the trial on her behalf would be a lot easier for her to get off if he wasn't there. She talked him into leaving, gave him money to leave.
And according to the witness, Shayne had sent her lover more money while he was on the lam.
Brett Ray couldn't get a job, didn't have a work visa.
He called Shayne. She managed to find $500 to wire him so he could buy an airline ticket back to the U.S.
Then the prosecution showed the jury proof that Shayne had been bankrolling Brett while he was on the run.
We got her fingerprint off that wire that she had filled out.
The prosecution rested on March 27th, but the real show was about to begin. The first witness called by the defense was Shayne herself. Once on the stand, Shayne denied any involvement in the crime.
Her defense was that she went to sleep and apparently Brett came back to the house and did this on his own.
Her story was that Brett and Kelly had gotten into a fight while Shayne slept in her bedroom, that Brett had killed Kelly in self-defense.
According to Shayne, she'd had no idea what had happened until Brett confessed to her after the fact.
My son's baseball bat was in the living room. And he said he just picked it up and swung at him to get him away from him. And he said that he didn't back off, that he had hit him, I don't know how many times. And he finally fell back onto the couch.
Brett had dragged Kelly's body into Kelly's car, had cleaned up any evidence of the murder in her kitchen. All of this while Shayne and her children slept through everything. And when Shayne woke up, everything seemed to be the way it was, except Kelly wasn't there.
And the affair?
On the stand, she claimed they didn't have an affair until after the murder, that he forced her, coerced her into that by saying that if he didn't, he was going to implicate her.
According to Shayne, that was why she had agreed to the tryst in the mountains, witnessed by the police.
My purpose in going there was trying to save what little bit of a life I had left at that point.
Well, you had done nothing. You weren't involved in this.
No, I hadn't. But I was also out on bond and under arrest.
In his cross-examination, prosecutor Al Schmutzer all but laughed at the suggestion.
She tried to say, well, she was forced into that, but again, that didn't. The old fella says that old dog didn't hunt.
He was threatening you, so you had planned on his birthday to fix him pina coladas and give him a bubble bath.
Those were not my plans, those were his.
The prosecutor may have scoffed, but as Shayne pinned her husband's murder entirely on Brett, he continued to sit quietly at the defense table.
He basically sat there with a great deal of sadness and resignation, I think is a fair word for that.
Brett's refusal to defend himself took even the most seasoned courtroom observers by surprise.
I have never seen anything like that in my almost 30 years in law. Someone sit there like he did and just take the blame for it and not say anything at all.
Coming up, a last-minute maneuver puts Shayne in control of her fate.
She turns around and walks off.
On March 28, 1995, Shayne Lovera and Brett Ray braced for the verdict in their trial on first-degree murder charges in Sevierville, Tennessee. They were accused of killing Shayne's husband, 33-year-old Kelly Lovera.
It was brutal. I mean, he's bludgeoned to death in his own home. They dragged his body through a window.
During her testimony, Shayne had claimed that Brett had acted alone.
She took the stand in the trial and pinned the rose all on Brett Ray.
Brett, on the other hand, hadn't offered any defense. So when the jury foreman rose and read the verdict that afternoon, the first part was all but a foregone conclusion.
We, the jury, find the defendant Brett Ray guilty of murder in the first degree.
But what about Shayne? Had the jury been swayed by Brett's silence?
The jury found the defendant Lisa Shayne Lovera guilty of murder in the first degree.
A year and a half after Kelly's murder, his family could finally find closure.
I felt relieved they were found guilty.
They were far from satisfied, however.
There's nothing in the world will bring back Kelly.
And their disappointment would deepen when they returned.
The case might come back 4 or 5 years down the road and have to put it back together again, and the family certainly did not want to go back through that again.
Not that the alternative was all that satisfying.
She pleaded guilty, and the judge even made her say it a couple of times, louder. But she never admits it. She turns around and walks off. That's kind of hard.
Despite your guilty plea, you're saying you had nothing to do with the murder.
I did not kill my husband, yes, I do deny that. I've made a lot of mistakes, I admit to that. I've exercised some extremely bad judgment, but I do deny killing my husband, yes.
Service called back to duty.
He went to Iraq in April of 2005.
She was the 26-year-old wife he left behind.
She would sit in bed crying because she missed him so much.
And when he came home for Christmas on a 2-week leave, the occasion called for celebration.
They went out to dinner. They went to a movie.
They went for what was supposed to be a romantic walk in the park.
They had blankets, they had candles, they had chocolates.
But being home turned out to be more dangerous than being in a war zone.
Who is that out here in the background?
My husband.
Is he being...
Before 3 a.m., city police received a 911 call.
Hello?
The woman on the line was 26-year-old Monique Berkeley. She was in a panic.
You've been shot? Who is that out here in the background?
My husband.
Has he been shot?
Yes.
The dispatcher tried to send help to the scene, but quickly hit a snag.
What is your address?
She was calling from Millbrook Exchange Park, a large park on the city's north side.
Monique and Paul Berkeley had been to a movie just prior to coming to the park for a romantic interlude that Monique had apparently planned for her husband.
But the plan had gone horribly awry.
She and her husband, Paul Berkeley, had been shot in the park.
Can you tell me anything at all about the people that shot you? With a black light?
I couldn't even see them.
Monique had been seriously injured.
Where were you shot at, ma'am?
My shoulder.
And Paul Berkeley was fighting for his life.
I think my husband is homicide.
Would help arrive in time?
Do you still feel the blue light?
No.
When you entered this park, you still had quite a distance to travel in a vehicle to get back to where this actually had taken place.
I need you to scream just as loud as you can scream. They're out there, they're trying to find you.
Okay.
I was working at a convenience store, and Paul was a regular customer of mine, and I wouldn't say we were friends, we were more of acquaintances.
At the time, Marcus was a woman named Marky, and she and Monique were more than friends.
We met on the internet when we first started talking. I think she said that she was bi, but as far as having any previous relationships with a female or with another female, no.
At 18, Monique was outgoing and enjoying her first taste of independence.
She had grown up in Florida, gone to Catholic school, was a good student, was well liked. Her father was a businessman, owned some restaurants.
She was in drama club in high school, so she had that out there personality where she would always try to get attention, and she was just the center of the room type of person.
As Monique and Marky traded emails and letters, their long-distance relationship bloomed. And in April of 1999, Monique had flown to Ventura County and met Marky face to face.
She said she wanted to be with me, and then she flew back home to get everything packed up.
Within weeks, Monique had moved in with Marky, and that fall, they had a symbolic commitment ceremony.
So she was essentially married to this other woman. Her parents apparently were disturbed by this.
Despite her parents' reaction, the women had stayed together for another 6 months. Then, in the spring of 2000, Monique met Paul Berkeley. A 40-year-old Navy veteran and divorced father of 2, Paul had trained as a computer programmer. But after his divorce and Navy discharge, he'd bounced through a series of jobs and girlfriends. By the time he met Monique, however, Paul was single, unemployed, and living near the convenience store where Marky worked.
Paul seemed like a nice guy, through our occasional, hey, how's it going at the store?
And one night in March of 2000, Paul and Monique happened to be in the store at the same time.
I said, oh, hey, this is my friend Paul. Paul, this is my wife, Monique.
Intrigued, Paul invited both women back to his apartment.
After I got off work, it's maybe 11 or midnight, we went to Paul's apartment.
He was, somewhat of a wild man, someone that was up for anything at any time. And he just sounded like somebody that was kind of the life of the party kind of a guy.
Marky and Monique only spent a few hours with Paul. But a few nights later, Marky came home to a note by the phone from Monique.
She left Paul's phone number, and I called, and no answer.
No one answered the phone that night. And when Monique came home the next morning, there was an ugly scene.
And I was like, what is this? I'm not stupid. I know what's going on.
And it was more than just a one-night stand. That morning, Monique told Marky it was over between them.
She said, well, I think I'm going to go stay with Paul. And so I remember said, get out.
Despite the drama of her breakup with Marky, Monique's relationship with Paul was on the fast track to domestic bliss. They'd only been together a few weeks when Paul took Monique to his ex-wife's house and introduced her to his kids, 12-year-old Zeke and 9-year-old Becky.
My dad said, this is Monique, and we were like, oh, nice to meet you.
After a string of girlfriends, the children barely noticed that their dad was dating a 20-year-old. But then he said something that did surprise them.
He said, this is your future stepmom. And it was kind of shocking.
Monique was as taken aback as Becky and her brother.
Her face was, she was really surprised.
Surprise or not, Paul wasn't kidding. In April of 2001, just a year after they met, the couple drove to Vegas for a quick wedding. And despite the 20-year difference in their ages, everyone seemed thrilled with Paul's new bride.
Everyone loved Monique, because after a slew of not-so-stable girlfriends, to finally have Monique in the picture, it was really good.
By all accounts, Monique was good for Paul. After several aimless years, Paul re-enlisted in the reserves, started applying for computer jobs, and his children moved in with him. According to his daughter Becky, Monique deserved much of the credit.
I just fell in love with her immediately and thought she was so great. This was a woman in my dad's life who seemed like she would be stable and be there for a long time, and I always wanted that family unit, that mom, dad, kid situation.
In 2003, Paul landed a position with a company in North Carolina, and the family settled down even further, moving to the Raleigh suburb of Clayton.
He wanted to raise his children in a small town, a safe place, and hence they came to Clayton, which is what anybody would think would be an all-American town to raise your children in.
The Berkeleys fit right in, despite the fact that Monique was only a few years older than her stepchildren.
We were going to school every day. Dad was going to work every day. Monique was staying home and just being a housewife.
In a little more than 3 years, the teenager who'd found a lesbian lover via the internet had transformed into a suburban soccer mom.
She would tell me to do my homework every night. Every night she would make a home-cooked meal. She just treated me the way that I thought a mother should.
Then, in early 2005, Paul's reserve unit was deployed.
He went to Iraq in April of that year.
Suddenly, Monique once again found herself in the middle of a long-distance relationship.
There were telephone calls, but there were also webcams and that type of thing.
She would email him every day. She would sit in bed crying because she missed him so much.
So much that for the first few months he was away, their bedroom remained exactly as her husband had left it.
He'd even left a pair of pants, his jeans, on the floor in their bedroom. She wouldn't let us move it to the laundry hamper because she wanted to stay exactly where it was.
But in a house with 2 teenagers, change was inevitable. And it arrived with an 18-year-old friend of Zeke's, Andrew Canty.
Zeke knew Andrew first, and they were friends and knew through the school
though Andrew didn't actually spend much time in school.
The principal said, yes, he was a student, but he missed so many days, I considered him a dropout.
Andrew and his friend LaTwan Johnson did spend plenty of time hanging around the Berkeley house, and 15-year-old Becky.
They would come over all the time, and eventually it came that LaTwan and Andrew both had crushes on me.
After a few weeks of friendly rivalry, LaTwan won Becky's affections.
It kind of gradually grew into a Becky and LaTwan situation.
That didn't end Andrew's visits, however, and soon after Paul deployed to the Middle East, Andrew was doing much more than just visit.
He actually started living with us, but we didn't really officially call it living with us because every night he would say, "Can I stay the night?"
And it wasn't long, according to Becky, before Andrew started taking advantage of the arrangement.
This was just an easy situation. He had a house to sleep in, someone who was paying for his clothes and food.
Andrew's presence in the Berkeley household had an effect on Monique, too. Spending time with the teenager took her mind off her husband.
Andrew Canty moved into the home not long after Paul Berkeley left for Iraq.
Monique no longer moped around missing Paul. She even picked up that pair of Paul's jeans from the bedroom floor.
She kind of stopped crying about him being gone, eventually washed those jeans and hung them up.
After 8 months away on December 14, 2005, Paul Berkeley arrived back home in North Carolina on 2 weeks' leave.
I was very excited about coming home, was very excited about being with his children and being with Monique.
But the actual reunion was uncomfortable and strained.
When we picked him up from the Raleigh-Durham airport, he tried to kiss her, and Monique just kind of turned her head and was being really awkward.
Was it just nerves or something else? Paul had no way of knowing. But when he finally arrived home, it quickly became apparent that something was up.
Within hours of him first coming home, Andrew and LaTwan came over, and Andrew was being really awkward.
Paul may have had suspicions, but Monique soon put him at ease. She had big plans for the upcoming weekend: dinner, a movie, and a little time alone away from the kids.
Monique had talked to Paul about having some sort of romantic get-together, romantic moments at a park in North Raleigh.
Coming up, the romantic evening goes horribly wrong.
I've been shot. You've been shot?
And Monique puts police on the shooter's trail.
I heard two voices.
At 2:59 on the morning of December 18, 2005, the Raleigh Police Department received an urgent 911 call.
Hello? I've been shot. You've been shot?
You could hear him struggling to breathe, hear him gurgling in the background. That's one of the things that really sort of haunts me.
Who shot him? I don't know. You don't know?
She told law enforcement that she was not able to see the people.
Can you tell me anything about the people that shot you? No, I heard two voices. They're male.
According to Monique, the two men had come up behind her and Paul, shot them, and then fled.
Is the assailant still nearby? No. The paramedics on the way, okay? I want you to stay quiet, stay out of sight, and tell me immediately if you see anybody moving around or anything, okay?
Soon, police and an ambulance were racing to the scene. While they were en route, the dispatcher tried to determine exactly where they needed to go.
Are you in the back of the park, in the front of the park? Where exactly are you? In the back.
Between the parking lot and a picnic shelter was a winding paved trail, and that's where it had actually taken place.
As they searched, all the officers had to guide them were Monique's terrified screams.
You gotta get as loud as you can. Okay. Okay, they heard you. They're coming through. How did you keep yelling? Because they hear you. They're running towards you now.
Finally, Monique saw something in the darkness.
I can see flashlights. Okay, keep yelling.
After nearly 15 minutes, help had finally arrived.
Are they with you? They're here.
When the authorities arrived, she was right by Paul's side.
Which way did they go? Are they still near there?
No, I think they left. They're not here.
Okay. Are you hurt? Where are you shot at?
But her husband, Paul, had been shot in the back of the head. Within minutes, both Berkeleys were in the back of an ambulance bound for the hospital. Once in the ER, a doctor gave Monique painkillers and bandaged her shoulder while the rest of the trauma team struggled to save Paul.
Her husband was fighting for his life with the medical team, doing everything within their means to save his life.
Moments later, the phone rang at the Berkeley home.
About 4 o'clock in the morning, we get a phone call, and I walk out and I see my brother on the phone, and he's saying, really? Okay, what are we gonna do? He hung up and I said, Zeke, what's wrong? He said, that was the hospital. They just called and said something is wrong with Monique.
For the moment, that something was wrong with Monique was all the information Becky and Zeke had.
I said, was that Dad calling? And he said, no, I don't know why Dad didn't call. It was just some attendant at the hospital. So I said, that's weird.
It wasn't until they reached the ER that Becky and Zeke learned the awful truth. Monique had been shot in the shoulder, but their father had been shot in the head, and his condition was grave.
A nurse explained to me that he was what they called brain dead. His soul was already up in heaven. His brain is gone. They were just pumping his body. It was just a body living, not our dad.
Later that morning, when the doctors took Paul off life support, Monique and the children were by his side.
Monique went to my dad's right side and held that hand. My brother went to his left side and held that hand. And I wanted to hold one, but I said, I'll let Monique go ahead and hold that one since I know she really loves him and this is hurting her right now.
While Monique, Becky, and Zeke were saying goodbye to Paul, investigators were combing the trail, hunting for any sign of the shooters.
It was a large-scale response from the police department. As my detectives started getting on the scene, we divvied up assignments. We put into plan to search the area.
The search turned up few clues, however, just a couple of .45 caliber shell casings and a picnic basket.
There was a basket that we found that Monique later referred to as a treat basket that contained some candy, some wine, everything that would be needed for a romantic evening.
But who would be lurking at the park at 3 a.m., waiting to ambush an unsuspecting couple during a romantic rendezvous?
It was very unusual for this to be a random type event. Typically, somebody wouldn't commit a robbery in a location because they would never expect to have a potential victim come down into a park like this.
Evidence at the scene also appeared to rule out a robbery.
The only thing to take would have been his wallet, and they did not take that.
There was one more factor to consider.
The weather was just terrible, and collectively as a homicide squad, we all got together to discuss this, and it was just not a plausible story. It didn't add up. It didn't make sense.
Out of all the places married couples could go to, for a romantic liaison, they're going to a park and it's really cold and it's late at night. It just seemed kind of strange that a couple would choose that situation.
Perplexed, the investigators at the crime scene considered their next steps.
After we discussed how unusual this was, I decided to go to the hospital where Mr. Berkeley and Monique Berkeley had both been transported.
By the time he arrived, Monique was alone. Becky and her brother had been driven down to the police station for routine questioning.
They asked us all these questions. Does Monique or your dad have any bad relations with someone?
Both teens said no. While Becky was in the interrogation room, her cell phone rang. It was her boyfriend, LaTwan Johnson, responding to her text about the shooting.
I didn't pick up, but I did go to the bathroom of the police station so I could listen to his voicemail.
Once she was alone, she played the message.
He just sounded really scared. He said, Becky, I know you're hurting right now, and I'm trying to find you, and we're on our way to the hospital right now to see you.
Then, Becky heard something else. Another voice. LaTwan's friend Andrew Canty, the troubled teen who'd been staying with the Berkeleys.
And I hear Andrew in the background, get off the phone.
LaTwan had quickly hung up, But the abrupt end to the call begged an obvious question, one the police would soon be asking. Were Andrew and LaTwan involved in Paul Berkeley's murder? While Becky and her brother were talking to investigators at the station, Detective Perry arrived at the hospital to question Monique.
She was in a wheelchair, her arm was in a sling. She was obviously uncomfortable, but she was able to talk.
The detective asked Monique to start at the beginning. How did she and Paul end up at the park? According to Monique, it was the final act in what, up to that point, had been a romantic evening with her husband.
He and Monique Berkeley went out that night. They went out to dinner. They went to a movie.
After the movie, Monique said they'd headed over to the park despite the rain, looking for a secluded spot to spend some quality time alone.
She told her husband that she wanted to have a romantic interlude in the park.
Evidence from the crime scene supported her story.
They had blankets, they had candles, they had chocolates.
But when it came to the actual ambush, Monique had little additional information to give. According to what she told the investigator, she never saw their attackers. She only heard them.
She told the authorities, though, she did hear 2 male voices.
But did she know whose voices they were? Monique said no, so Detective Perry tried a different approach.
I just began trying to determine if she had any idea who might have had some knowledge that they were coming to the park.
This time, Monique did have an answer.
She did indicate that Andrew Canty, a young man who had moved in with her, was aware of the fact that she and Paul were planning on going to this park after the movie.
Coming up, the police learned that Andrew has a motive for murder.
Monique and Andrew would go into my parents' bedroom.
But does he also have an alibi?
When all this was taking place,
Morning, December 18, 2005. Just hours after 46-year-old Navy reservist Paul Berkeley was ambushed in a local park, Raleigh police had a lead on his possible killer. The breakthrough had come courtesy of Paul's young wife, Monique. Shot in the shoulder, she was still in the hospital when police took her statement.
She was cooperative. She talked with them.
We were able to get a very detailed statement from her.
And early in her statement, one detail immediately stuck out.
She implicated Andrew Canty and another friend of his by the name of LaTwan Johnson. Click.
But why would Andrew and LaTwan want Paul dead? When Detective Perry asked Monique exactly how she knew the young men, Monique said that LaTwan was her stepdaughter's 18-year-old boyfriend.
He was in his freshman year at East Carolina University.
Monique's relationship with Andrew Canty was more complicated.
He had had some difficulty, according to her, and had moved in with Monique and her stepchildren.
However, according to Monique, she was providing the troubled teenager with more than just a place to stay.
As it progressed, she informed us that she had become romantically involved with Andrew.
According to Monique, she hadn't intended to have an affair, but with her husband overseas and Andrew always around, their relationship had evolved.
Monique and Andrew would go into my parents' bedroom sometimes, and I would not think anything of it. I just kind of ignore it.
And there was the fact that 26-year-old Monique was closer in age to Andrew than to her husband.
She was 20 years younger than her husband.
At first, they'd tried to keep the affair hidden. But eventually, she'd confessed to her stepdaughter.
I came home from school one day and she said, Becky, Andrew, and I slept together. And I just wanted to let you know.
But with Paul coming home, Monique told police she tried to conceal the affair.
Shortly before he arrived back at their Clayton home, Andrew had moved out.
Monique said she'd also sworn her stepchildren to secrecy.
We were afraid of hurting our father by telling him about the affair.
And he certainly didn't know what was coming. Andrew was booted out of the Berkeley house on Paul's return. Had the jilted teen sought revenge? It sounded plausible to the detectives.
She was treated as a victim, and we didn't begin to really suspect her until we had the conversation with her out at the hospital.
Monique was under various levels of sedation, and she gave a pretty detailed statement to law enforcement about what had happened.
And the more Monique rambled, the more her statement started to sound like a confession.
Ultimately, there at the hospital, she confessed to taking part in the whole scenario to kill her husband.
She told them that there was a plan. She told them about how the plan had evolved.
According to Monique, the whole romantic interlude was a ruse, simply a way to get Paul to the park and into Andrew and LaTuan's ambush.
They knew where they were going to walk down the path, and they were waiting. And they were waiting with that gun.
The plan was for her to be harmed so that it would divert our attention away from her. I think the three of them discussed shooting her, and I think they also discussed beating her. She knew that she was going to meet with some physical violence.
That was the plan, according to Monique. But over dinner with Paul, she said she started having second thoughts.
The statement that she gave was that at the last minute she professed her love for Paul and decided that she couldn't participate.
Monique even claimed that she had slipped out of the movie theater to contact Andrew and call the whole thing off.
She, in fact, had called Andrew Canty from the bathroom during the movie.
And when she arrived at the park with Paul, Monique said she'd had romance on her mind, not murder.
She told authorities that when she arrived, she did not see their car. And so she believed the plan had been called off.
That's what Monique told the police. But that didn't mean they believed it. The moment she was released from the hospital, Monique was taken into custody.
They took her right from the hospital. She was still wearing a hospital gown. Her arm was still in a sling from where she had been shot in the shoulder.
Within minutes, word of Monique's confession reached her stepchildren, who were still at the police station.
One of the police guards came into us and said, your mother just confessed. She's at the hospital being questioned, and she actually just confessed.
The two teenagers were stunned by the news.
It was just terrifying. Zeke and I looked at each other, and we just hugged each other.
The rest of the news was hard for Becky to hear. There were two other people involved, Andrew Canty and her own boyfriend, LaTuan Johnson.
I would not let myself believe that LaTuan was as involved as Andrew, because I loved LaTuan, and I couldn't accept that. To lose my mom and Andrew, who was, my roommate, classmate, in the same day as losing my dad, I couldn't lose my boyfriend in the same day, so I wouldn't accept it.
Andrew and LaTuan were still at large, but thanks to Monique, they wouldn't be for long.
She provided a great deal of information, which ultimately led us to secure warrants against Andrew and LaTuan.
Although when the police pulled over LaTuan's car later that Sunday afternoon, the pair acted like concerned friends, not fugitives.
And we're en route to Raleigh to the hospital is when they were stopped by the police.
Questioned about the shooting, the young men denied any involvement.
They tried to have us believe that they were in Greenville, North Carolina, when all this was taking place.
Greenville, which is where LaTuan Johnson was attending college.
And they said they had been there all night partying because it was the end of the semester.
The alleged alibi did little to deter the police, however. They arrested Andrew and LaTuan on murder charges and quickly moved on with the investigation.
We worked for weeks, if not months, following the initial arrest, trying to wrap this all together.
The first step was to drive to Greenville and check out the alleged shooter's alibi. Asking around the college that Monday, the police couldn't find anyone who remembered partying with either of the boys that Saturday night.
In doing interviews and following up on different leads that we had, that story began to unravel.
Cell phone records also placed Andrew and LaTuan in Raleigh and on the line with Monique on the night of the murder.
There was evidence that she had called Andrew from the ladies' room at the movie theater during the movie to confirm the time that she thought she and Paul would be at the park, and then she took him there. And the rest is history.
In fact, the phone traffic between the three supposed conspirators spiked around the same time that Paul announced that he was coming home for Christmas.
Cell phone records also showed lots of phone calls between LaTuan Johnson, Andrew Canty, and Monique Berkeley in those 2 or 3 weeks prior to the homicide.
They did a lot of text messaging back and forth.
A lot of that communication was done in what I would describe as code.
And while the police were issuing subpoenas for the phone records, the local media was busy researching online.
Everybody these days seems to have MySpace sites and blogs. Their photographs were all over the internet.
From the various blogs and social media sites, a revealing picture emerged.
All the blogs were very helpful in establishing the extent to which they all knew each other and establishing the kind of relationship that they had. One of the blogs, I think Monique's, even had a picture of her holding hands with Canty.
The police went one step further and obtained a search warrant for Monique's computer. They wanted to see what she knew about Paul's life insurance policy.
We did seize a computer in order to review any emails that may have been made back and forth, and to also look to see if there had been any permanent record of her researching the internet for this life insurance policy.
There was, and the time frame for her research just happened to precede the increased communication between Monique and her co-conspirators.
Monique Berkeley is the one who initially looked into the insurance policy. In fact, went online to find out how much the insurance policy would be.
The payoff? Almost $500,000.
You know, most of us know that's not enough to live on the rest of your life, especially if you're splitting it 3 ways. But, you know, to people who are 20, 18 years old, that seems like a whole lot of money.
It wasn't all the search warrant uncovered either.
Within a few weeks of Paul's return, there were statements that she had written down in her diary and had made to other people that she didn't want to be his wife anymore, that she wanted him dead.
On January 10, 2006, Monique Berkeley was formally indicted on first-degree murder charges. She may have been shot during the crime, but the authorities clearly believed that she was the mastermind behind it.
She was responsible. She was the one that made the plan. She was the one that got these other men involved.
If she had taken Paul to dinner and said, "Oh, I want to go home," it wouldn't have happened. If she had been at the movie theater and changed her mind and not gone to the park, it wouldn't have happened. I put the idea and the execution of it squarely in her lap.
And as the trial approached, the prosecutors were prepared to request the death penalty.
There was not any one thing that dictated. You have to take all of it into account, and it's something that many, many hours are spent by our office in making that decision. Seriously, a matter of life and death.
Coming up, the prosecutors head to court with a powerful ally on their side.
He certainly had much information to give us.
And Monique faces her own life and death. On September 26, 2007, Monique Berkeley was led into a Raleigh, North Carolina courtroom. Despite the striped jumpsuit, she hardly looked capable of the crime she was charged with: first-degree murder.
Monique Berkeley came in what I would call Heidi braids, and very tearful and very sad looking, and really she gave you this impression of being this scared, hurt little girl.
You could just see the tragedy of everything that was unfolding. It was all on her face, it was in her posture, it was in the way she walked into the courtroom.
The 27-year-old had reason to be scared. The DA claimed Monique and co-conspirators Andrew Canty and LaTuan Johnson were behind the December 2005 murder of her husband, Paul.
She, in fact, admitted her involvement in the plan.
Monique, however, claimed she had tried to call off the plot to kill Paul. But the authorities were far from convinced. Instead, they considered her the mastermind behind her husband's death. And in light of the heinous nature of the crime, offered her a deal: plead guilty in exchange for life without parole.
And people make a decision between the potential of the death penalty or serving life in prison, and most people would choose life.
Monique's lover, Andrew Canty, had faced the exact same choice a month earlier. In August, with his trial days away, Andrew's attorneys had approached the prosecutors about the possibility of cutting a deal.
We had completed a week of jury selection when they indicated they wanted to talk about resolving the case by way of a plea.
We were concerned that Andrew was going to be convicted, and because of the nature of the offense, we were very concerned that Andrew was going to get the death penalty.
In addition to Monique's initial statement the morning after the murder, the prosecutors had a new witness against Andrew, his best friend, LaTwan.
We initially approached both the attorneys for Andrew Canty and LaTwan Johnson to see if their clients wanted to talk with us about what happened so that we could figure out exactly who was the shooter.
Andrew had refused, but LaTwan hadn't.
LaTwan Johnson's attorney indicated that LaTwan Johnson would be willing to talk with authorities. He, in fact, talked freely with law enforcement.
He was very articulate, certainly had much information to give us and share with us.
And the primary information he gave the authorities was that Andrew had been the shooter.
LaTwan's statement was essentially that Andrew had done the killing.
According to his statement, LaTwan had simply been the driver, joining in the plot for a cut of Paul's life insurance payoff.
They promised about $70,000 to LaTwan Johnson.
LaTwan told prosecutors that on the night of the murder, Monique had called Andrew from the movie theater to confirm the plan, a direct contradiction of Monique's claim that she thought the ambush had been aborted.
That part of her statement was her trying to remove herself from the actual participation.
Instead, according to LaTwan, Monique had known exactly what she was walking into when she and Paul started down the park path early on the morning of December 18, 2005.
When Paul and Monique went by, Andrew Canty came up behind him and shot him into the head.
Then, according to LaTwan, Andrew had carefully shot his girlfriend in the shoulder.
The plan was to shoot Monique to make it really look authentic.
To convince the cops that his story was authentic, LaTwan told the detectives where he and Andrew had dumped the weapon.
Officers took LaTwan Johnson to the Neuse River, where LaTwan Johnson said the gun was thrown.
And when a dive team failed to find the gun, LaTwan led detectives to the man who'd sold Andrew the murder weapon.
That person told authorities that he had in fact test-fired that weapon just before selling it to Andrew Canty. So authorities go to that residence and they're able to find a shell casing that came from the weapon that was bought by Andrew Canty.
We were able to locate who sold the weapon, and from a ballistic standpoint, we were able to conclusively link that particular gun to be the murder weapon.
LaTwan's confession forced Becky Berkeley to face the reality of his role in her father's death.
LaTwan called me a couple days later, and I was crying, and I said, I think this is going to be our last conversation. I finally got it through my head. This is a bad person. This person helped kill my dad.
LaTwan's cooperation was also a wake-up call for Andrew Canty. In light of the overwhelming evidence, Andrew's attorneys had advised him to take the deal.
LaTwan Johnson filling in all of the blanks on what happened would have been very, very difficult to overcome at trial. And we were very concerned that we were not going to win the guilt phase of the case.
Andrew had taken his lawyer's advice, pleading guilty to first-degree murder.
We presented him with the options that were available and certainly what we felt the evidence was going to show, and predicted what we thought the outcome was going to be based on what we thought the state's case was going to be against him, and he made the decision.
A month later, on the afternoon of September 27, 2007, Monique Berkeley stood in the same courtroom, contemplating the same decision, albeit with one big difference. She and her attorneys not only faced the same evidence, her lover had just confessed to the crime.
They clearly were aware of the position Andrew Canty had taken, and that he had come in and admitted guilt and pled guilty to first-degree murder.
Coming up, will Monique take the deal or take her chances at trial?
She seemed visibly upset.
On September 26, 2007, Monique Berkeley stood before a North Carolina court, facing first-degree murder charges for plotting to kill her husband, Paul. A conviction would mean a possible death sentence, but only if the case went to trial.
We had decided that since Andrew Canty had received a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole, that we would make that same offer to Monique Berkeley.
Monique had considered the offer, and that morning she entered a plea of guilty to first-degree murder.
She seemed visibly upset. And, you never know. Is the person crying because they know they're going to prison for the rest of their life, or are they crying because they're genuinely sad?
As arranged, Monique was sentenced to life without parole for the murder of her husband, Paul, a Navy reservist home on leave from Iraq.
The irony of it, he's fighting for the country overseas. That's the time you think he would be most in danger.